Hi, I'm Josh Morris, curator of exhibits of the Smoky Hill Museum. And today I'm going to show you how to make your own audio device to play your favorite music, podcast, or whatever audio you want to listen to. Now to get started, there's a few things that you're going to need. You're going to need your own speaker, an amplifier, a power source, and then of course you're going to need some tools. And it's pretty simple. You're going to need some wire cutters. Here, this is just a very basic, simple one. And then you can get more complicated like this. This one adjusts right to whatever gauge wire you're going to use. So if you do a lot of wiring in the future, that's a great one to buy. Also, you might need a soldering iron. Now, a soldering iron, that's if you do a lot of wiring and you want to make sure you have really solid connections. Today, we're not going to use it, but again, in the future, that might be something you want to invest in. Also, you'll need some small little screwdrivers. Now these guys, a lot of times they'll actually come with some of the components you buy, but you can also just pick these up at any hardware store. So having those around are always super helpful. The last thing you're going to need, of course, is something to listen to. For today's presentation, I'm going to be using my own phone, and we'll just be playing audio off of that. And of course, last but not least, actually, you're going to need some wire to hook everything up. All right, so let's get started. We're going to talk about each of these components individually. Let's start with the speakers. Now, if you didn't know, speakers come in a wide range and variety, and they can be either passive or powered. Well, today we're going to be talking about passive speakers. So generally, those are just speakers that need their own amplification. They don't come with it built in. A powered speaker might be one that you find like on a desktop computer. But today we're looking for a specific type. These are called 8 ohm speakers. So the ohm, that's what is called impedance. Those typically can be 4, 6, or 8. But we're going to look for 8 ohm speakers today. If you look at the back of these speakers, which I have, now these are just sort of junk speakers that I found around the museum, meaning they were spare, I used them for projects, and then when I'm done with them, I put them back and wait for a future project. And hopefully, if you look around your house, you'll find similar stuff like this just laying around. You'd be surprised. So again, let's look at the back of this speaker. This one actually tells me right here, this is an 8 ohm, 5 watt speaker. So I'm going to need to remember that. 8 ohm, 5 watts. So let's say you've got your speakers, you've went and searched your home, or you got online and you purchased 8 ohm speakers. Next thing you're going to want to find is an amplifier. Now this is our little amplifier we'll be using today. He's a real small guy, but he can be purchased online for anywhere from $10 to $12 to $14. It really depends how big of an amp you need. Like I said earlier with the speakers, these are 8 ohm, 5 watts. So when I purchased this guy, I always keep on all my documentation, and I know that this amplifier has an input power. So input means that's how much power I need to put into it. This one can range anywhere from 9 volt all the way up to 18 volts. And this particular model says that it prefers to be 12 volt 2 amp. So if I look back at my speakers, I know that these speakers want 5 watts and an 8 ohms. And I know that this amplifier can do 2 speakers that are either 4 or 8 ohm and up to 15 watts apiece. So I know that my amplifier will now be enough power for both of my speakers. Now there's the other part I'm going to need, and that's the actual power. Now if you look around your house, you probably have a device that looks like this. They come with a lot of electronics like TVs or computers. Sometimes toys will have them. And if you're like me, I save onto those things regardless if I've thrown the rest of it away. I just hold these and I put them in a drawer and I wait till I have a future use for them. So if I look at the power source like this guy, if you look closely, it's going to tell you what kind of power it has. So this one is listed 12 volt. 2 amps, so 12 volt 2 amps, which is exactly what we need for this device. So now we've got all these parts that are matching up nicely. Now I didn't say this earlier, but we're working with electronics, so it's always important to disconnect any power before you begin working. That's just a common sense safety precaution, okay? All right, so we have our speakers, we have our amplifier, and we have our power source. And we know they all match. So the next thing to do is just get started. Oh, you know what? I forgot something. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this later. But generally, you might want a container to put this all inside. And that's really, it can help with some of your sound depending on the speaker you use. But it also just makes it look cool. I mean, let's be honest. OK, so let's start. For purposes today, I've sort of pre-hooked everything up. But in general, it's pretty darn easy. So we have our speakers here. These ones came hardwired, meaning the speakers already had wire connected to them on one end, so I didn't have to worry about that part. So I'm going to look at my amplifier, and if you were to look real closely at this amplifier, you're going to see it has these little terminals with screws. So I'm going to look at here, and if I look closely in the board, I'm actually going to see a positive and a negative. If you can't see that listed on the amplifier you've purchased, you need to look at any paperwork that came with it, and it should tell you. Or you can get online and usually find an answer to that. But you want to make sure you're identifying where your speakers are supposed to connect to and where your power goes. This one's pretty straightforward. We have 2 terminals for our speakers, and we have 1 for our incoming power. And then it's just kind of like connecting the dots. So here we have our speaker that has positive and negative marked. So I just take my terminals, I open them up by screwing them, backing the screw out. I insert my wires, and then I tighten down my screw, making sure again that my positive and negative are in the proper terminals. I do that with both speakers, and then I do that with my power. Now, if you're like me, I don't always like to cut into whatever wires I have, and I like to try to keep them as good as possible, just because I like to reuse them over and over again. Well, this amplifier, it actually has no port to just plug into. So if I wanted to take this power source and plug it right in, I really can't do that. So my only option is either to cut this wire and connect it in hard, or I can use one of these DC connectors. Again, this is going to be an added expense, but it's a really cheap expense, and in my opinion, it's worth the cost. You can buy a pack about 20 of these, and when I say 20, it means 20 both male and female sets. So this would be the male side over here, and this would be the female, and so you'll get 20 of these, and about 20 is going to cost about $10. You can also buy them single, or 4 or 5 at a time if you don't want to spend $10. It's up to you, and it depends how much wiring you're going to do in the future. They also sell speaker ones. So this will have your positive, your negative, and a common wire. And that will be for like stereo. So if you don't have a cable like this, you can simply connect it with regular hookup wire with one of these. And again, it's all clearly marked for you, so it's really not too difficult to figure out. All right, so here I've used the terminal that I purchased. I've got my speakers connected. And now I'm ready to connect my power. So it's simply just plugging that in. And if you look closely, you'll see that I have an LED light that's turned on, so I know I'm getting power. So now we just need to connect an audio device. In this case, like I said, I'm going to use my speaker. So this just uses a regular 3.5 millimeter jack. This is pretty much the same kind you'd use on your computer or your phone. And I'm just going to plug it in there. Now, I've set it to medium volume on the amplifier, but you can also control it on your phone. I like to keep the volume fairly medium to low on the amplifier and then do whatever I need to on my phone. That way, I don't plug it in and immediately just get blasted by too much volume. So that's just something you can play with, kind of to whatever you like. And that's that. Really pretty simple. Now, you're probably wondering, what if I don't want to have a wire connected? Well, believe it or not, for about the same price, you can actually do this via Bluetooth. So when I was talking to earlier about different containers that you might put this in, Well, around the museum, we've done this many times. I've built custom cabinets that look like 1930s radios. I've actually put them inside real 1930s radios that weren't quite working, and I wanted them just to play music throughout the day. Or I've built custom boxes like this one behind me here. This is just basically a simple case I built, but inside it, I've used similar type components, and I'm running off an actual car stereo. It also has a push button. This will actually play a specific track over and over whenever anyone touches that button. These are all things you can find online easily, and it's just a matter of knowing what you want to do and finding the parts. The last thing I want to show you actually is this little radio. Now this is very similar to what we just built. Really the main difference is the side of the speaker that I used and just the box that I put it into. Over here, this one has a slightly larger amp, so I have a slightly bigger power source. So again, I'm just going to unplug, put my new power source in, connect it to my device, and this is where you can get fancy. Now, I could have just left it so it powers on and off with just plugging it in and out, but here I wanted to just, maybe I didn't want to have to do that all the time, so I just put a switch right in the front. So I can flip my power on, I added in an LED light, and that's telling me that it's all powered up. And then if you heard that large chime, well, that's because this is Bluetooth. So if we open this up, we're going to see a different kind of amplifier. This is just like the one we did earlier, only this one has Bluetooth built in. It also has a slightly different control for playback and for volume, but generally you might not have to use all these pieces. It can be still done with your phone. So now if I wanted to play audio, I could go to my phone, go to my Bluetooth, turn it on. You heard it, it sounds like it's pairing up now. My phone tells me I'm paired up. And again, I can control the volume. I can control it off my phone, or I can control it inside the box. Here again, I've set it to be in the box and then controlling off my phone just to make it a little bit easier on me. Now, if you don't have any electronics and you can't find anything around your house and you're not sure you want to do all that, you can also do something that's pretty fun and it's a lot more straightforward. You might have even seen these online before. This is just a simple amplifier. No electronics needed. This is just 3 pieces of 1x5 or 1x6 that are stacked together, and I've drilled holes in of different sizes. So the first one has a 2.5-inch hole, and then I have a 3-inch hole drilled in the middle board, and then I just have a backing, solid backing. And then if you were to look inside, I've actually cut or drilled holes to go through the middle board into the center channel, and they match up with the speaker locations on my phone. So if I wanted to play something on here, oh, you know what? I have my Bluetooth on, so I got to turn that off. And I just play it in there, and it will amplify it. And this works pretty good for small rooms, and I use it all the time here around my shop. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions about any of these projects, feel free to contact us at the Smoky Museum, and we'd love to have you visit. So have a great day.